Do not go to war unless you are sure of victory. It was a hard lesson to learn, and one I would carry with me for the rest of my life. Once again, I failed to protect my men by leading them into unequal fight. I tried to save one, but they killed all but me. The days and nights I spent with the bandits who had taken me captive gave me plenty of time to think and realize my mistakes. And the day came, the day of my escape. My homeland had suffered endless, unequal wars, and I was alone, again. After selling the last of the goods we had earned on the battlefields, which I left in my room and the tavern, I set out to gather a new army. I traveled from village to village, some wanting to join the troop out of a thirst for glory, others just wanting money, but I was happy to have them all. Quantity doesn't mean quality, but without quantity there is no quality. This is a lesson I have learned from my past experiences. You can't make a villager a knight all at once. He has to become one himself. So before the party headed north, we decided to reduce the number of bandits. The kingdom of Swedia, where I was born, was famous for having borders with almost every neighboring kingdom. This gave us rich trade. But it also made my country the most dangerous to live in. Every peasant knew how to wield a sword, let alone a spear and a shield. With our previous experience in battles, we were able to take out most of the bandits without too much trouble. And that meant one thing. We were ready for battle with the Vikings. The Vikings were feared even by the Norsemen themselves. The Norsemen had jarls, some common sense and good beer. The Vikings had only rage and madness. They didn't try to avoid battles. They were not frightened by the number of the enemies. And that made them the most terrible opponents. It frightened us. But if we wanted to become stronger, we had to overcome this fear. It was long weeks of fighting. We lost men, but it made others stronger. I used the money we took from the Vikings to buy food and equipment for our men. The northern cities are beautiful, and the people there are tough but very kind. I didn't understand their language, but we didn't need to. The Northerns are no strangers to hospitality. The homeland, the forests and fields, the sunshine that was sorely missed in the north, and my ambitions that brought me back. In Swedia, the best thing a man can do is to serve his king. So all my actions were for attention. So we went on daily raids against the bandits, on errands for the lords of the cities. After our battles in the north, they were no longer battles for us. In the town of Suno, in one of the taverns, during another break, I met a man called Jeremus. He told me his story of how he had operated on a merchant's son, but because he had not listened to the doctor's advice, the boy died, and then he was persecuted. At a time when people are being killed for toothaches, I was ready to give him anything to have him with us, but he agreed to work for free. And it was a great stroke of luck. Knowing that our scars would heal, We began to make more tactical and thoughtful raids on bandits, to make a name for ourselves. I didn't want to lose another unit, so I did everything carefully and was successful. All that we have worked for, all that I have worked for, is before me. King Harlaus. It is impossible to express the desire to serve. Impossible to describe the pride of being a knight and fighting for your country. But because we were not a small band, because we prove our worth, I was allowed to enter the assembly. I was accepted by the king, but when I offered to serve him, he said I was not experienced enough. He gave me a hint that the most glorious knights shine at tournaments, and that he would accept me if I were famous. That was enough. One hint was enough to make me rush to all the tournaments in all the cities. The tournaments were organized as jousting between 2 or more knights. Each knight wore heavy armor and was armed with a sword, spear or battle axe. Depending on the tournament, different rules and conditions may have been set. Money and glory, or shame and wounds. I chose the former. But to become a full-fledged knight, I decided to prove my usefulness. At the time, my country's enemies were the Calrats, steppe warriors with spears and bows, on very fast horses. They wore no shining armor, nor did they come at us with axes, but they were among the most worthy and cunning of opponents. And when I found one of the Khans, we went into battle. The first ranks of my squad simply collapsed under the onslaught of the cavalry. Just as my shield was shattered by a single lance thrust. Yes, it was a glorious battle. The victory was very hard, but the reward was great. Afterwards, we went to the city of Dhirim, where an ambush awaited me. At night I wanted to go to the tavern, but I heard a noise. When you are in constant combat, your hearing begins to pick up atypical waves, like a man drawing a crossbow, or a sword being drawn from its scabbard. I was clearly no match for them, so I went to the tavern after dealing with the problem. At one of the regular celebrations, King Harlaus called to me with a gesture and gave me a small task. I had to go to the kingdom of the Rhodoks and deliver a message. Once in the city of Elan, I could not resist the pleasure of wandering around and seeing how they lived. The people of this kingdom were used to living in the forests and mountains. Their buildings were like a house inside a mountain, lined with stone. They were perfect infantrymen. It was obvious that they were clumsy and uncomfortable on horseback. But when it came to crossbows and attacks on foot, they had no equal. I delivered the letter to the count and decided to spend the rest of the day in the tavern. On my return, I received a letter saying that the king himself wanted to see me. But little did I know that the day had come. I've become a Lord Knight, carrying his banner and his men for our country. I couldn't believe it, but I had achieved my goal. I had done what my fathers couldn't, and most importantly, I had done what I had promised, like a true knight.